Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. My guest today on Better Than I Found It is longtime professional golfer Spencer Levin. Spencer and I first crossed paths when I was an assistant coach in Stillwater when Spencer took an official visit to OSU 25 years ago. A competitive baseball player until the age of 15, Spencer really came to competitive golf later than most Division I golfers. In this episode, we talk about Spencer's volatile temper that often held him back in that same junior career, and then as an amateur, and finally as a professional golfer one day. Spencer recalls a very memorable interaction with OSU's Mike Holder on the practice tee at the 2004 NCAA Championship, a vivid memory for him. We delve into his very notable college and amateur career, along with the highs and lows that he's experienced in professional golf. Spencer is the very definition of journeyman professional, and he still has a great deal of enthusiasm for the game. But he's probably most proud of his nearly 4 years of sobriety, an anniversary he will celebrate this coming February. Spencer's always marched to the beat of his own drum, and I think you will enjoy getting to know some insights into the life and career of this very unique figure in the world of professional golf. Enjoy. All right, Better Than I Found It listeners, please join me in welcoming longtime professional golfer Spencer Levin to the podcast today. Spencer, it's awfully nice of you to join me on Better Than I Found It.
I'll tell you what, Coach, I'm just glad you asked me, and I'm really happy to catch up with you. I've always been a big fan of yours, and you've always treated me great, so I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. You are a most unique character in pro golf. I mean, you're very recognizable. Everybody pretty much that follows professional golf knows who you are. You've got a great story. I'm going to call you a term here in a little while, a journeyman. We're going to discuss what that means, but you literally are the essence of perseverance. You just keep on going. It's great to watch your career.
Thanks, Coach. That means a lot to me, man. Especially coming from you. I mean, that makes me feel very good, and I appreciate the kind words.
Absolutely. Well, I first saw you 25 years ago, almost, I guess. A good friend of mine who was actually an FBI agent stationed in Sacramento told me, he said, there's a couple of kids coming up in the next year or so here in the Sacramento area. One of them is Spencer Levin and the other is Jason Hartwick. He said, you probably ought to think about recruiting both. And we did. I was the assistant coach at Oklahoma State at the time. And I told Mike Holder about you. And so, and I don't know, we're going to talk a little bit about him in a minute because it was an interesting dynamic there. But at first glance, when I first saw you play, it was so obvious to me you are a relentless competitor. Somewhat undersized, especially in those days, but it didn't stop you from rising in the junior ranks. I know your dad was a terrific player in college, but what was it from your dad that you got your competitive nature, and what influence did he have on that early junior career?
It's funny. I didn't really play much golf when I was real young. I was a baseball player pretty much full time till I was about 14 or 15. Kind of when you saw me, I started getting a little more serious with it when I was about 14. But he never pushed me into golf. I think he wanted me to be a baseball player. He played. I mean, he had his card for a little, like a year or two, and he went through the professional ranks. And I think he knew kind of how hard it could be on a guy, trying to play professional golf. And he knew like what percentage of guys actually made it. So he was very realistic about that. So the last thing he ever did was push me towards golf. So when it comes to competitive and wanting to win, maybe I got it from my dad, but I don't know. It's just something that you can't really explain, right? So like if we were playing horse in the yard, or, if we were playing a board game or something, it's just something that I don't know. You can't really describe it. So I might've got it from him, but that's just kind of always been there, no matter what sport I played or whatever activity I've done. So that's kind of just something I've had inside me. I've always had to tone it down. I know I've heard guys say, even other college golf coaches talk about their kids. It's really hard to get a kid turned up if they're a subdued kid. You have a better chance of trying to tone a kid down. So for me, it's always I guess the knob's always been turned all the way up, and I've had to kind of kind of calm it down. So I don't know if I got it from my dad, coach, but I would just say it's just something I've naturally always had. And he never pushed me into golf, which, I can understand why, because it's so hard. And I have a son now, and I'm never going to push him into it. I mean, sure, if he wants to play, I'll teach him everything I know, but I would never force him to do something. So, but anyway, I think it's just more of a natural thing, coach.
Well, I was tipped off. I wouldn't have found you otherwise. It had not been for my friend Steve Dupre. He just mentioned your name and he had seen you at a tournament. He didn't tell me at the time you were a baseball player, but I could see the athleticism. I could see all of that, but I could also see that volatile temper. And
Yeah.
Mike Holder always told me his downfall in golf was because he was a great player. He was a 3-time All-American at Oklahoma State, good player, but his downfall was his emotions on a golf course. And so he kind of developed a coaching style that didn't allow kids to have any emotions on the golf course. And the Oklahoma State guys would walk around always well in control of their emotions, no problems there.
I remember that. I remember playing against you guys. I always remember that.
Yeah, well, that was mandated. And I think I've gotten halfway in between you and Mike Holder on that one. I don't want to steal. Like if I coached you today, I don't think I would steal all of the fire from you. I would let there be enough to keep you going, but because that's internal, that's inside you. I can't put that in a player. It's impossible.
Right.
And he would be offended if I tried. But I'd rather have that guy, like you said, turn it down a notch than the guy that I have to try to motivate. How do I do that? I don't have any idea how to do that.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
I noticed your volatile temper. You've obviously gotten control of it because you've played pro golf for 20 years. But what techniques have you used? I'd be really interested to know because I've got some players occasionally who run into this.
I tell you what, Coach, you asked if I got my competitive nature from my dad. I think I got that temper from my dad. No offense to my dad. I love my old man, but I mean, kind of growing up watching him play, it was just kind of like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. But maybe it's taken me 20 years to realize you're not supposed to. But the techniques and stuff, I don't know. I think it's how can I put this? The more you play, the more you experience certain things and you kind of see what works and what doesn't. And I think as I get older, obviously, you get older, you get a little more calm, but I don't know. It just getting mad and getting overly mad, it doesn't help you when you play golf. And I think that to Coach Holder's point, like you said, he understood that. And that's why he didn't want his players to do that. And to your point, well, you can't take it all away. The medium is not a bad place to be, but it having a temper and getting overly, aggressive, I guess, mentally or overly, fired up, it doesn't help you when you play golf. It's not like other sports, as you know. So I think just knowing that for one, as I get older, I realize it hasn't helped me. And then the older you get too, the more you realize, well, it's not doing you any good for one. And second of all, nobody really cares anyway. So when you're doing this big scene and causing all this attention to you, everybody else has their own ball to worry about. They're not worried about your ball. So I think those two things, as you get older and you realize it, kind of makes it in the back of my mind. Okay, sure, I might get a little mad if I had a bad shot, a couple here and there, if it's not going good, but it's not going to be to the extent of causing a scene where it's going to bother anybody or anything like that anymore. So I think it might just be age and a little bit of experience, a little bit of both, probably, Coach.
Yeah, I think the maturity that you probably gained. Plus, you'd like to make paychecks.
Sure, yeah, exactly. If it's going to add a shot to your score, you don't want to do that. So
no, for sure. Well, let's go back to when I was evaluating. I talked Mike Holder into the visit. He had seen you at the U.S. Junior. He did see some temper at the U.S. Junior. I think you lost a match on the 18th.
Yeah.
And he said, "Wow, Mike, we're going to have to settle this kid down." I said, "Well, Mike, let's just get him on campus, okay?" So you and your dad came and visited, and I see if I remember this correctly. Were you wanting to verbally commit? Because we were in the car driving, and it was like you were so close to wanting to commit, and your dad said, "Whoa, put on the brakes, son. We've got to visit other schools." What was it like?
That sounds right. I remember you guys invited me on like sorority weekend. I remember that. That was pretty cool. Yep. So we were walking around campus with that going on, which was an awfully good sales pitch. But yeah, no, I just knew I had so much respect for you guys, and like I know how great of a program you were, and I knew what you guys were trying to do with you guys make pros. You're all about golf. I'm all about golf, and you guys couldn't have been nicer to me. So all these things were definitely in my mind. It kind of came down to it was almost, I think I already, before I visited you guys, verbally committed to UCLA. So that was what I did. And then I kind of felt a loyalty to them. And another reason for that was because my dad was really good friends with Brad Sherfy, who was the coach there. So I eventually made that decision. I think, looking back, I probably should have gone with you guys. I mean, having said that, I made good friends at UCLA. And the second I signed with UCLA, the next day they fired Brad Sherfy and they hired Odie Vincent. And don't get me wrong, Odie's a great guy. He was a very nice guy. He did his best with me. At that time, I wasn't really ready to go to college. So I think maybe if I would have gone with you guys when I was 18, you might not have seen the best side of me either. I was very emotionally immature. I was the first time on my own. I like to I like to drink too much. I like to party. I like to do all those things. So there were a lot of things that wouldn't have been good for me no matter where I went at that time in my life. So, I could blame, they fired the coach that I wanted to play for, but it was me. It was me. It was my immaturity in a lot of ways. And, but I learned quickly with my second chance. When I left there and I went to New Mexico, I knew that, hey, I got to turn it around, and I did. But at the time when I was 18, I don't want to say I'm glad I didn't go with you guys, because you guys would have probably seen a side of me I didn't want you to see. And but fortunately, I overcame that, and I improved a lot of things off the course of my life. But anyway, that was I just remember how great of a team you guys were, and I knew that you guys were always competing, and I knew that if I wanted to be a golfer, that would not be a bad place to go. I just felt loyalty to UCLA at that time.
Totally understand. Totally. You finished that year at UCLA, you got a release, and you sent your release to Oklahoma State. So Mike Holder said, "Hey, Coach McGraw, there's a release here from Spencer Levin from UCLA." And I said, it's funny, when we were playing in Stanford's tournament, I saw you and you talked to me. You were as nice as you could possibly be to me. I thought you'd already in your mind thought, I'm going to be transferring. So
okay.
You don't remember that, but I do. And
okay.
I was the assistant coach. I wasn't coaching. I was just walking along. But anyway, at the time, Mike said, "No, we're not going to do that. We're not going down that road." And I said, "Well, Mike, we haven't signed anybody this year. We could sure use this player. He's already a proven player." And he said, "Well, okay, here's what we're going to do, McGraw. I'm going to write a letter back to Spencer, and you're going to write a letter back to Spencer. Let's compare letters." And so mine was fundamentally different than his, because mine was, "Hey, Spencer, didn't work out the first time to come to Oklahoma State. I really thought I wanted you here. I'm a second chance coach, and I think you deserve a second chance." And Mike's was, "Spencer, you don't want to take anything for granted. You didn't take advantage of your first opportunity. Wherever you end up, take advantage of that opportunity."
Yeah.
At Oklahoma State. Did we send those letters? I can't even remember.
I can't remember either, but I'm trying to remember, Coach. I want to say you probably did. I remember sending a few letters. I remember sending to you guys, Arizona, maybe Arizona State, a few other places I sent it to. And but I kind of vaguely do have a memory of that now that you bring it up. I remember, other schools would say, "Hey, we already have our scholarships filled up. There's no room, this and that." But I remember when I ended up going to New Mexico, that was my best bet, because they gave me a scholarship and I could play right away. So that kind of, to me, was and their schedule was good. I remember we played against you guys a handful of times. So I just thought this is the best place for me to go. And that's kind of why I made that decision, because I could play right away, and the schedule, and they gave me some money to go play. So,
well, I couldn't remember if we mailed the letters. I think Mike Holder was just wanting me to go through the exercise
and compare. I got you. That's pretty interesting.
But there's a little more to that story. So you transfer, and I'm going to get back to that. You and Mike Holder, not a confrontation, but a meeting at a tournament later in your career. So you transferred to New Mexico. Describe the environment that Glenn Milliken, allowed you to thrive, because he obviously created a nice environment, and they had a competitive team. That was for sure. Coach Milliken, I'm going to read to you something he said to me this morning.
Okay. You talked to Coach this morning. All right. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Describe Glenn as a coach, his way of doing things. Why were you able to thrive and become an All-American there at New Mexico?
He seemed to, I could tell he believed in my game right away. I knew that he knew I was going to play in the lineup. He wanted it to be as smooth of a transition for me there. I had a friend there, Charlie Belgian. We were roommates. He set that up, and I didn't have to be in the dorms. We were off campus with my friend. So there were a lot of things he made for me as comfortable as he possibly could. So he just basically set it up and said, "Hey, I'm going to give you your chance. Let me see what you can do." And fortunately, I took advantage of it. So he didn't really do anything out of the ordinary other than the fact that he just gave me the best chance to succeed. And he was always like that with me. He never wanted me to do anything I didn't want to do when it came to golf. I mean, sure, he makes sure with my grades and everything stayed up, but when it came to my golf, he understood very much that, my dad was my instructor. Whatever I'm working on, he was very hands off in that way. And fortunately, I had success the whole time I was there. So he never felt like he needed to step on my toes or anything. So it was just the fact that he believed in me and let me do my own thing made me feel better too. I felt more confident. I felt, better in that way. So he just basically just gave me the opportunity and he believed in me and it worked out. So there was nothing like crazy about it. He was just a great coach. He just believed in me. And I like that.
The four most important words to a coach or to a player from a coach should be, "I believe in you." That should be the most important.
I agree.
And there's genius in doing less. And he
Yes.
probably, he knew that you were a good player. Let's just let this thoroughbred run. Okay. Let me tell you what he said this morning. He said Spencer was a big part of us becoming one of the best teams in the country the 2 seasons that he played at New Mexico. We had a great team made up of U.S. junior champion Charlie Belgian and Jay Choi from California, along with players such as Madalitza Mutia from Zambia, Jay Reynolds from Austin, and others. And we had a Louisville transfer in Mark Anderson. But adding one of the best players in the country with Spencer, it elevated everyone's game and gave us a chance to be competitive those 2 years. He took full advantage of everything available to work on his game. You'll never find anyone that will outwork Spencer, and he had the most competitive attitude of anyone I've ever coached.
Wow. That means a lot. That's great. Yeah, Coach and I, we always got along great, and we've been friends for a long time. I miss him. I miss him because every time he was around, I had success. So maybe I gotta have Coach fly out for a couple weeks or something next year.
Taken him on tour with
I should.
Austin Eckroat, who is
he's playing great.
Playing great. But his average score in the 7 rounds I followed him in college, where I'd walk with a player the full round, his average score was 67. And I told his parents, crazy for not sending me on tour with this guy.
It's funny you mentioned that, Coach. I got paired with him on Monday a couple years ago for Vegas, and I got paired with Austin the first 2 rounds, and we talked about you. He told me that he told you we were playing together, and you told me to say hi, and then I said, hopefully relay it back to Coach and tell him I said hi too. So he's a nice kid, man. He's a really good player, really nice kid.
He really is. He's got tons of talent. I know his future is bright. Let's get back to the Mike Holder deal, where he sent the letter basically that said, not going to happen.
Thanks, but no thanks. Yeah.
So we were at the Homestead for the national championship in 2004. So your first year at New Mexico.
Remember that.
We got paired with you guys the first 2 rounds. And
I was paired with Alex Noren.
You were playing with Alex Noren. And Mike had me follow Alex, who didn't
I remember
play
that.
Well. So I watched you play a bunch of golf, and you were 3 or 4 under par with 2 to play. We were finishing on the 9 that had the par 3, whatever.
Yes, I remember that. Yep.
And you finished like triple bogey on the easy par 5 and 3 putt on the par 3. So you played the last 2, 4 over par, and I think shot even.
Okay.
So, but I was looking for the explosion.
Yeah.
And there was nothing. Now, I know you still were probably struggling a little bit at the time, but you handled it like an absolute prince. So next morning, we're on the range tee. You're all the way at the other end, and I'm down here with Zach Robinson and Mike Holder, and Zach's warming up. You remember we had a 15-minute van ride to the golf course from the practice?
I do remember that. And we all stayed in that same big hotel. There was like a bowling alley in the hotel and all that. I remember that.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'm looking down there, and I see you at the far end, and I said, Mike, to Coach Holder, I said, Mike, I witnessed something yesterday I never thought I'd witness. And he said, what was that? And I explained to him when you were playing with Alex, how you handle those last 2 holes. And he said, well, how did he handle it? And I said, fantastic. It's like it was the most mature. I know he was fuming inside because he just thrown away a good round, but he handled it great. I said, Mike, kids can change, He turned around. He started walking to the other end of the range Do
I
you
remember
remember?
like it was yesterday. I remember
You
like it was
do?
yesterday.
Okay.
I
Give
remember
me
like
from your perspective what he said to you, if you
well,
can.
my first thought was Coach Holder's come walked up to me. I went, "Oh crap, what did I do?" That was my first thought. So I was like, "Uh oh." And I'll never forget this. He told me what you told him, and he said he was very proud of me. And he said that if I continue to do that, I will be a much better player for it. And he was very proud of me. And it warmed my heart. It was like, wow. I'll never forget it. I will never forget that. So,
Okay.
and it meant a lot to me that he said that.
I've never asked you about that, and I thought it'd be a
Mm-hmm.
good time to bring that up.
Coach, I remember it like it was yesterday. I do. I
Yeah.
totally remember that.
Well,
Absolutely
I'm
do.
I'm glad he had enough gumption to do that, because I
Mm-hmm.
just told him, I said, this kid's got a chance to be a great player, and he will be if he gets control of those emotions. So, okay, we get past that national championship. A month later at Shinnecock, you're the
Mm-hmm.
low amateur in the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Open. That had to be a really exciting week for you.
Oh, totally. Yep. My dad was caddying. It was, you hear guys talk about it when they have a great week is how fast the week went by to them and how it just goes right by. And I remember having that feeling. Like I remember, just getting there, doing the practice rounds, and just happy to be there to, the award ceremony, standing next to Retief who won, and Phil down there doing the work. So it was all like it all happened. It seemed just like in the blink of an eye. So it was a really fast week. I ended up having a great summer that year and played great the next year in college. But it's amazing, as you know, what confidence can do for you in golf. And that week was big for my confidence. And then I ended up playing great that rest of that summer and the whole next year. It just went by real fast. And I had my first hole in one of my life that week, which was unbelievable. And it was just an unbelievable week from start to finish. It really was. And I'll never forget it. So
Having dad on the bag had to be pretty special too.
very special. Very special. He it was special to have him because he's the one who introduced me to golf, and my instructor and dad and everything about it. I think it was like Father's Day too, and my birthday and all that stuff. So it was just a special week. So every time the U.S. Open's around, it's always around my birthday and Father's Day. So like all that in one was just a great week. I just turned, I think, 20 years old that weekend, and it all just happened so fast, man. So
Yeah.
it was great though. It was something I'll never forget.
You played in the World Amateur team that year as well, and the United
Uh-huh.
States won the World Amateur. And the following year, following your last year at New Mexico, you played in the Arnold Palmer Cup as
Mm-hmm.
well, and the U.S. won again. So you're part of two. We need to talk to the PGA. They need to get you in the Ryder Cup one day, because
Yeah, that's right. That's
you're
right.
undefeated on
Yeah.
international teams. You're undefeated.
Yeah, there
So
you go. There you go. All
I
right.
would love it. Well, okay. Well, let's talk about your pro career. So it's been 20 years. You've
Yeah.
had lots of ups, lots of downs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, before we get into your career, something that I didn't prepare you for, but we talked briefly about before the podcast, was how much better these players are getting.
Yeah.
So Charles Howell would occasionally call me. We talk about golf later, years after he had left Oklahoma State, but he'd always say, "What are you feeding these kids in college golf? They are a different animal, even from when you played, and even in the last 5 or 10 years." Talk about the differences you've seen in amateur and college golfers.
I mean, coach, I don't think words can describe it. I mean, these kids now, the level of golf has gone up so much in the last 10, 15 years. And then not only that, but each year now it's going up. So, and I think we were talking earlier, and last week at second stage, I played, unfortunately I missed, and I was playing with a friend of mine, who not quite as old as me, but he's been playing professional golf a long time. We were paired the last two rounds together. And I think I finished about 5 under, and he finished about the same, and the number ended up being 12 under. So, it wasn't close. I had a chance after 2 days, but didn't have a great final two rounds. But I remember we were walking off our last hole, and he looks at me and he goes, "Man, this is like," he goes, "Did you think the scores would be this low?" He goes, "Man, golf just like seems to be getting harder and harder." And I told him, I said, "Look, I was trying, the only conclusion I can make after playing 20 years of professional golf is that as vital as one shot has always been, it's never been more important than nowadays. Every shot is so important, and you can't afford to throw away anything anymore. You used to be able to maybe get away with missing a short putt here and there and still having a good week, but there's just so many good players. The level of golf is so high that if you're throwing away a shot, you're going to have a hard time having a good week, or let alone make a check at all, especially on a lot of these tours where, cuts are 6, 7, 8, 9 under par sometimes. And it's amazing the level of golf. It's amazing how many guys are great players. And there's just no end in sight to it either. And to me, it just shows you that it doesn't, I guess what I'm trying to say is when I was first pro or in college, you kind of knew who the good players were. You kind of knew which guys were going pro. I remember a few years ago at second stage, there was a kid from a Division II school that you never heard of that won second stage by numerous shots. That never would have happened 15, 20 years ago. That didn't exist. So the fact that that's going on now and only going more of that direction, it just shows you the level of golf so high. It's insane. It really is.
Did you ever run into Kyle Jones playing the Corn Ferry?
Yes, I know Kyle. I know Kyle very well.
He played for me at Baylor and was my assistant coach for 5 months. He's going back home to Phoenix now. His wife's got a great opportunity, but that's not the point of the story. Kyle and I were talking.
I hate to hold that thought, Coach. He's such a nice kid. I'm a big Kyle Jones fan. He is a great kid, and I've got paired with him numerous times, and I enjoy playing golf with Kyle.
One of the good dudes for sure.
For sure.
He and I were talking about the same subject about how professional golf is ridiculous, and he said 1 year he shot between 23 and 25 under in 3 different APT events.
Wow.
That's the APT, all
right.
Pro Tour. And he finished second all 3 times, 23 to 25 under 3 different times on a mini tour.
Unbelievable.
Couldn't win. It's like, what is happening?
They're better. Unbelievable. It really is. And
it's great to see, actually. But
it is. No, it's great for the game. And I got some theory. I think it's everything, Coach. I think it's everything. I think, first of all, first and foremost, guys don't go to the bar anymore. They go to the gym. I think that's really high up there. I think the level of golf instruction in the last 15 to 20 years has turned 180 degrees. I think that, so you got guys who are working out, you got golf swings that are 1,000,000 times better than they used to be. Then you got the computers telling you which driver to use, which ball to use. You got all these putting trainers. I hear these guys say, "Oh, where are these putting trainers? I don't know this and that." I go, "No, you don't understand. This you can't go to a tournament now without every single guy with some type of putting trainer on a practice screen." So you do, which I think any type of putting trainer is good. I do. I think all of it helps, and it shows with the way these kids putt. But anyway, every single factor, you name it, is what makes these kids better. And it's just, it shows in the scores and it shows in the level of golf. And it's just through the roof how good these kids are now.
So what is your ball speed right now with the driver?
You're going to laugh. I don't ever get on the track, man. I just know that if I smoke one, I'm still behind these young kids by a pretty good amount. So I am trying to get to the gym though. I'm starting to do that a little bit this winter. I've never been disciplined with that as much as I have been with my actual work ethic practicing. So I got to implement the gym in a little bit. I'm not getting any younger, and I'm playing against 23, 24-year-olds who are flying at 300 plus. So and they get up and down, and they all have Phil Mickelson's short game in his prime. So it's crazy.
Silly. I had a player who played 5 years for me. He played a COVID 5th year, Johnny Kiefer, who just won the Fortnite Cup on the PGA Tour Americas. He got status the day after Nationals. So we played the national tournament, and he was the 25th guy in PGA Tour University.
Okay.
And all he did was finish in the top 5 9 times in 11 events on the
tour. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and so he's got his Corn Ferry card. He's going to be.
I was going to say, he sounds like a hell of a player. I mean, that's not easy to do.
Yeah, but he hits it 330 straight, and putts it well. I think that's a good recipe. I don't know. Long
and straight and putt good? Yeah. Okay. I'd say it's a little better than the alternative, Coach, wouldn't you?
It is. But, there's that, which means you have to get better every year to maintain. You've got to get better. By the way, you look a little thinner in the face, which there's one of the reasons I know, but also the fact you're working out a little bit more tells me you're probably getting more in shape.
I've been trying to. It's just it's become something that if I want to compete, I'm going to have to do. I mean, if I'm already 20 yards behind these guys, I can't not work out when they're working out. So no matter how well you golf your ball, it's going to be an uphill battle. If you're 20 yards behind guys, I get that, and I understand that. But it's just it's funny. My dad came out this year and watched a couple of events and had a couple. I had a decent week when he was out 1 week, and I think I shot 15 under par, and it was 36th place, of course, but he was telling me, he goes, and he was honest. He goes, look, I mean, you got these guys are out driving you by 20 plus yards, and they get up and down every time they have a bad hole. He goes, it's going to be an uphill climb for you. It is. He goes, not saying you can't do it, but you're going to have to play basically as good a golf as you've ever played if you want to move up this money list and do it. And he's very, very realistic about those kind of things. And that's just the way it is. Like you said, I mean, it just adds up that way. If a guy's out driving you, if they have great short games, it's going to be tough. And it's just something that I'm going to have to improve, or at least make an effort to improve my ball speed and get longer if I want to compete. It's just the way it is.
Well, you'll get it done. Listen, I mentioned this earlier, but that term bogey avoidance didn't exist. But if you can't do it, then you go down 20 spots on the list.
Yes, it's unbelievable. And like you're saying, especially on this Korn Ferry Tour, Coach, it's like, I mean, if the cut's going to be 8 under par, if you make a couple bogeys in that first round, you got to play lights out to make the cut. And it's just absolutely crazy now. And everybody knows it. And, you know, it's funny. It was like you said, if you make a bogey now, you drop so far on the list, right? Not only you drop on the list, you're getting beat by all these guys, but when you're even the group you're in, I've noticed, if you make a bogey, those guys are beating you on that. Those guys aren't making bogeys on that hole. So you're getting your butt kicked by both the guys in your group. You're dropping 20 shots, and it's just unbelievable how good every golfer is now. And even when these kids have a bad hole, they make a par. And it's crazy. It's crazy.
You call them kids. I still think you're a kid.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Coach.
Look, okay, let's talk about, you did win, though, a year and a half ago. So you've won fairly recently on the Korn Ferry Tour. Talk about that victory, and because that's in the modern day when all these kids are hitting at 8 miles. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was my first win ever in a PGA or Korn Ferry event. I did it with a Monday qualifier. The winter before at Q School, I bogeyed the last and missed by 1 at finals, which was tough. But fortunately now it's not you miss by 1, you get nothing. It's at least, you know how that works. Obviously it's like a nice little pecking order. At least you get in some events. But anyway, I wasn't even going to sign up for that Monday, and I did. I just figured, I might as well. I ended up staying with a friend of mine, a college friend from UCLA, and I slept on his couch for the week. He caddied for me, and I won. So talk about going by fast. I remember I got there Sunday evening before the Monday, and then the next Sunday evening, I'm sleeping on his couch with a win. It was like the weirdest thing in the world. I mean, it was like, what just happened, So I remember I shot 63 in the Monday, and then I shot 63 the final round. So it was kind of a bookend deal there, which was pretty cool. I just had a great week. I had a couple things go my way. I played great all week. I knew in the Monday, I remember telling somebody, I was hoping I would get in because I knew I was playing really well. Sometimes you can get lucky in a Monday, right? If it's an easy course, you have, chip in or make some long putts, but like I knew I was playing really well. So the fact that I got in, I knew I was going to have a pretty good week at the worst. I didn't know I was going to win, obviously, but I knew I was going to have a good week. And I remember I was playing really well. In the final round, I was playing great on the front 9. I think I turned 4 under. And the 10th hole, I'll never forget, I hit a ball that was going to go in. It was going to be, I hit it straight left. It was going to go in it was going to be a redo. It was going to be a bogey or a double bogey, and my tournament was going to be over. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't even trees. It was just bushes. And the ball bounced out of the bushes somehow right in the middle of the fairway. And I looked at my cat. I go, what just happened? And I don't know. And they're like, yeah, that's your ball. It was the weirdest thing you've ever seen. It was like somebody threw it out of the trees for me. Or threw out of the gunk, And so I get up there as a par 5, and I end up making a birdie. So I went from a 6 or a 7 to a birdie. And then from there on out, I just felt like, well, if this is it, this is it. Like this is going to be, you hear guys say it all the time. You need a good break to win. And that's the first time I'd ever been in contention like that, where I got a break like that. And I thought, well, if any time, it's going to be now. And I just tried to stay positive, played great coming in. And, I hit it great all day, and I just, other than that shot, and I ended up fortunately winning. So, but that break, I'll never forget it, was what got me the win. So,
yeah, well, that's not the only. I know that's your only PGA Tour victory of any kind, a Korn Ferry or PGA Tour. But you also had some close calls. I think in 2011 in Mayakoba, you lost to Johnson Wagner.
I did,
and in a playoff, and you had 2 third-place finishes, 9 top 5s, 17 top 10s. So you've had some success for sure. You've made more than half the cuts on the PGA Tour, but you still are what they would term as a journeyman, meaning you just keep on moving forward. You never stop. Where did this perseverance come from? Because you have to have it. And if you don't love the game of golf, you don't get to play it for a long time because it'll beat you up.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny. I'm gonna to your point though. Like I lost in a playoff in Mayakoba. It was one that was tough on me. That still lingers in my mind. I mean, not all the time. It's getting less as time goes on. But in 2012 at the Phoenix Open, I had a 6-shot lead going the final round, and I didn't win the tournament. And that was pretty tough on me. That one lingered for a while. You hear guys talk about that, and it was kind of a weird story there, coach. But like I'll never forget this. That the night before the final round, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I smoked cigarettes at the time. And I remember I went out back on my back patio, and I actually had a condo in Arizona, in Scottsdale there, where I would stay in the winter to practice, and I would stay during the Phoenix Open. And I remember going outside there, sitting on the balcony. It was maybe 3 a.m. I woke up in the middle of the night thinking I'd already won the tournament. It was the weirdest thing. So I'm thinking, wow. And then about halfway through, when I'm on the patio having a cigarette, it hit me like a ton of bricks that said, oh, crap, I got to play today. So I've never talked to a shrink about that or anything, but it was the weirdest psychological thing I've ever had in my life. It went from being so calm and happy that I'd won the tournament to thinking, wait, I still got to play golf today. And then from that moment on, I didn't go back to sleep. I'm nervous as what. And I just remember the whole day, all I could think about was wanting to get the day over with, wanting to get it over with, wanting to get it over with, wanting to get it over with. And obviously looking back, that's just the worst way you could possibly look at it, and that had a big effect on my career. I think, it's easy to say that, but I mean, who knows? I had a good day that day, win the tournament. You never know where your career will go after that. And then even later that year, I had at the Memorial, I had a 3-shot lead going into the final 9 there, and Tiger ended up winning, and I had a bad final 9 there. But once again, I had a 3-shot lead with 9 to go. You'd like to think you can get it done, and I didn't. So that 2012 year was big for me, Coach, in terms of just kind of the rest of my career. If I have a good, last 9 holes in both those tournaments, my career might be different. Who knows? It definitely would have been different, but it's hard to, you move on, you keep playing, and you eventually it's not like you're thinking about it every time you're playing competitive golf, but when you're sitting around and you're just kind of reflecting on things, it can kind of creep in there, and that can be the difference in a guy's career moving forward, definitely. And now seeing that from a perspective, 15, 20 years later, it's very, it's pretty obvious, but yeah, I've been trying hard. And like you said, I keep playing, and I've always known I can still play. And I'm very realistic about that. If I didn't think I could play, I would not do it. So, and if I ever feel that way, I won't. I will do something else with my time. I don't know. It'll be maybe something golf related, maybe not. But the reason I keep playing is because I still believe I can play golf, and that's why I do it.
You need to keep believing.
Thanks,
your
Coach.
enthusiasm is still very high, and your resilience level is pretty high for a guy that's. We've all been beat up by this game, right? And
yeah,
it's beating you up occasionally, but
totally. No, sure, totally. I mean, I got as much scar tissue as you'll see anybody. I mean, when like you say, you play long enough, it doesn't matter what your name is, you're going to get a little bit at least. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, listen, you mentioned Monday qualifying, and that's how you got in your Corn Fair event that you won a year and a half ago, and then Tour School you mentioned last week, where you just missed getting through that stage. So there's a mentality for both. And it's an unusual, it's different than if you're playing in Phoenix and you've got that tournament and you've got full status or whatever. Sure. Monday qualifying, what's the mentality and what's the mentality for Tour School for you?
That's a great question. It's funny. I think it's obviously in the Monday, you got to shoot a bunch under par. Generally, the course isn't too difficult. So it's very much kind of almost like a skins game mentality, where it's more of a go for broke kind of an attitude. I think Q School, there's no cut, right? So at least you kind of think like, well, I don't need to take too many chances early in the week, maybe later in the week if I'm near the number type of thing. So it is 2 completely different mindsets, like you said. But I found that, the guys who are successful at Q School in the past, when I was successful in Q School, the best thing you can do, it's easier said than done, is to try to treat it like any other tournament. Because in the back of a player's mind, okay, this determines my whole next year and all this pressure. But, the guys you see are successful in it, they're very relaxed with it. They're still talking in a way on the range they would as they would in a practice round. When you see guys get clammed up and they kind of get a little tight with it, that never does anybody any good when it comes to playing golf. So, and I think that if you can find a way to kind of have that Monday attitude in Q School, I think it could help. Not necessarily so much about how aggressive you play, but in a mindset like, oh, it doesn't really matter. I might not make it anyway, so we'll just kind of happy-go-lucky, see what happens. And if you have that mindset in Q School, like a Monday mindset in that way, that helps guys. And it's easier said than done, but that is definitely the most important thing mentally in Q School, I think.
So a little more carefree as opposed to do or die. I mean,
sure, because absolutely, because it's going to be very hard to be carefree, right? When you're playing for a tournament that is going to determine your whole next year's worth of golf. So the more carefree you can be, the more you'll be more normal, if that makes sense.
yeah, it does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed you just never know, because you were Monday qualifying, not expecting to win the golf tournament that week. You hadn't even gotten through the Monday qualifier.
Right,
So
exactly.
low expectations sometimes yield great results.
It just shows you that you honestly really do never know. And if you're playing good golf, anything can happen. And then that's what it is. And things can change very quickly. If you're playing well and you're in a tournament and you have the opportunity to do it, things can change very quickly.
Is this energy you've got real? Because I remember you having energy as a young player, and when I recruited you, and I liked that. And yeah, there was the temper and all that, but I love the energy. You still got it. You're 40. You still got it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's I quit drinking. I don't know. I got kids of my own now, and I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But I don't know. I've always been kind of a guy who's been like too fired up as opposed to not fired up, and it's just kind of the way I've always been. So
well, I can't. There's an old term, and you've heard the term 1,000 times. A coach might say, "I'm going to light a fire under that kid. I'm going to light a fire under him." And I used to use that term until I realized if I put the flame underneath that kid and he doesn't like the flame, he just moves away from the flame.
That makes sense.
So I quit trying to light it underneath him. I tried to light it inside him. And you've got that. You still have that flame, that flickering flame that's like,
Thanks,
I want to do this. Yeah, it's impressive. But you mentioned something a second ago. You said I quit drinking. So in February, you'll be 4 years sober.
Yep.
Talk about how that's influenced your family life, your personal life, your golf life, your health, everything.
It's something that I needed to do. About 4 years ago, I didn't have any status, and I found myself, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I still wanted to play, but when you're at home playing and you're not playing competitively, and you're with the boys at the club, it gets easy to well, let's have another beer at lunch, or let's have a beer and go play a quick night. So I got into that, which is great. It was fun, but at the same time, it was like it got to be the point where I was drinking a little too much, and I was like, look, if I'm whatever, 36, 37 at that time, I thought, what, if I want to, I love golf too much to do this, to not give myself a chance. And I knew that if I stayed down that road, I wasn't going to even give myself a chance. So I thought, I don't want to look back 10 years from now and still be drinking, saying, man, I wish I would have given it one more shot. So I thought about all those things. I wanted to set an example for my kids too. So it was just those things. I tried to look at what was important to me, and I found out what was most important to me. And when you're sober, that's the thing I've noticed the most. And I've talked to other guys who've gotten sober too. And you start to see what's really important to you. And just my day-to-day life, your basic everyday kind of errands you run, things you do, they become something that you want to do, and it just becomes part of your life. And it's just sure, I do miss watching a game with my buddies, having a beer, sure, but at the same time, I learned that even if I go to the bar and watch the game with them and I have a non-alc beer, they're still my friends no matter what. So worried about that was something I realized I didn't have to worry about at all. So once I got through that and I realized it's helped my personal life with with my loved ones and everybody in my relationships, then I'm able to keep doing it. So originally, I was only going to quit for a couple of weeks, Coach. That was what I was going to do. That's what my wife wanted me to do, and I said sure. But then it got 2 weeks turned into 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, and now it's turned into almost 4 years. So I'm happy I did that.
And when did you quit smoking? Because that was equally as important.
Yeah, I quit smoking. I remember the date. It was September 5th, 2012 was the last cigarette I had, because my grandfather just passed away from emphysema. Right before that, and right after he passed away, I threw the cigarettes away the next day. So I remember seeing him, I was very close with him as my dad's dad. We were very close, and I remember him basically, he was dying in the hospital, and he was trying to talk to me, and he couldn't even talk, and I have a hard time getting that image out of my head. And the next day, I threw him away. I said that was it. So
that's great. Well, you're going to live a lot longer and a lot healthier because of it. So
thank you, Coach.
Well, congratulations on sobriety. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, clear mind, clear head, great golf going forward.
Thank you, Coach.
You bet. Well, one thing I want to ask is, because you are, you obviously picked up the game at about 14 in a serious way.
Right.
I want to play the game. What would you tell your 14-year-old self, or what advice would you give to any 14-year-old that wants to play the college golf, wants to be an All-American, wants to play professional golf? What's your best piece or pieces of advice?
Well, I think, if you asked me that question 15 years ago to now, I think it'd be a little different, just because the way the level of golf is going. I mean, if I was realistic with a kid, I would honestly be like, well, and this isn't the nicest thing in the world to say, but I'm sure you'd agree, though, if a kid doesn't have the talent now, there's no point in doing it. I mean, with how good all these guys are, you could work as hard as you want, do all the right things, but if you don't have a lot of talent, the way golf's going, you're going to be wasting your time. If you want to be a professional golfer, sure. If you want to play golf and maybe get a scholarship and just have that be part of your life with business and stuff, then that's great. But if you want to be a pro, man, you better be like off the charts good now. So if I had to tell a kid, I'd probably want to play golf with him and like at least see him. I mean, I wouldn't break his heart and tell him you're lousy, but like at the same time, it'd be like, well, you're wasting your time if you don't have it nowadays. I think back in the day, if you worked hard, sure, you still had to have some talent, of course, but I mean, the work ethic could get you over the top. Now, if you don't have that talent, that work ethic it's a great thing, but it's not going to do anything. So I think it would have a lot to do with the ability the kid has, but before the talk I would have with them for sure.
For sure. Okay. Well, listen,
is that fair enough, Coach? Does that make sense?
That's fair enough. I'm okay with that. And by the way, I didn't have enough talent. I had a great work ethic. It got me a coaching job.
But hey, you know what? You're the best, though. You're the best.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, listen, this has been a blast. Just spending about 45 to 50 minutes with you.
Me too. A
lot of people know your name, and they probably think they know who you are, but you gave a lot of stuff on this podcast. And I've got a small listenership, but very loyal. And I know that they're all going to want to hear this and your story. So thank you very much for spending time.
Coach, I mean, it's my pleasure, man. The fact that you just wanted to be on here meant a lot to me. And I really enjoyed talking to you. You made my day just having me on, just talking to you. You look great. And I want to say, too, I saw Morgan Hoffman at second stage, and we were talking on the phone after the final round. Morgan's a very good friend of mine, and we were talking about you. I told him how you wanted me on the podcast, and I wanted to make sure to tell you that Morgan said hi. So
well, and he's going to come back on this podcast again. I think his story is absolutely amazing right now, what he's been able to do.
He's one of my favorite people. He's
fantastic. People. He's one of the most genuine, sincere people you'll ever meet. I'm glad you got to be friends with him. So
I couldn't agree more. So.
All right. Well, thanks again, Spencer. Have a great Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I'll be looking for you out on tour next year again.
You too, Coach, and it was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks.
See you, Coach.